Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
My name is James.
James.
Suj.
Obviously, the weekend is finished. For many of the regular listeners on the audio, they will not be able to see the YouTube video where clearly what little hair you had left, you pulled it out in the second half yesterday because you're looking fresh trim, my friend. Fresh trim.
At least I
Either
didn't
the
go.
hair fell out or you pulled it out yesterday.
No, I did have the fresh trim on Friday night. Those on the deadline stream can say that my head didn't just fall out during the second half at the Amex yesterday.
Okay, just check in.
At least I didn't get home at nearly midnight.
Yeah, I was going to say, the worst would be an awful decision. Was it?
Yeah.
Really? Oh, mate, 6 hours to get back. Did you have to get a coach or something?
No, the trains were pretty buggered last night. So, yeah, is what it is. Yeah, you have to suffer some of the bad days to have the good days. But if anyone's looking at my FPL rank going, this James not seemed that jolly this morning. Yeah, Tottenham really ruined my weekend yesterday, which we'll talk about a bit.
I listened to your show with Flav last week, The Lab, and anybody I recommend go and have a listen to that. And you did make the statement. It's like when the weekend starts, FPL switches off, and it's all about Tottenham. And so yeah, but I mean, you got to enjoy the. You got to take the good moments as well as the rough moments. That's the whole point of it, right? You can't have good without bad.
Being a Tottenham fan is such a life lesson, I think. About learning all the things that can happen. Like I feel like Tottenham have given me over the years. So yeah, we'll talk Spurs later.
We will. You did allude to having a good FPL rank. You had a storm of a weekend again and are rising up rapidly now, James. 5K, give or take.
I was just looking for the tissues because my nose is about to start bleeding. I should imagine at any moment.
There's only one problem with having a high rank.
Yeah, big red arrows.
There's only one way to go. It's like you've peaked too early.
No,
you've done what Spurs did last year.
We're trying to win the game here, Suj. So
we are.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're sitting 5-2-7-1 is where I am at the moment. Yeah, you've got to know that the red arrows are probably around the corner, right?
Exactly that, and it's three big green arrows in a row is what's got you there. I think owning Cole Palmer the previous week was good, and then captaining Saka this week and having bits and pieces all around elsewhere is also it's also really good. And this is the two weeks where Erling Haaland's blanked. You've had the better alternatives in both weeks because even Mo Salah wasn't necessarily enough to cover. The next 2 weeks, he goes to Wolves. He's got Wolves and Southampton, the two bottom teams in the league. I think I saw yesterday between the two of them, they've conceded 36 goals this season so far. So Wolves are on a run rate of 3 per game. Southampton are on a run rate of 2. I'm not. Look, you could just as easily have one of your other players do well during that period. So it's not. It's just always what works. You can go with. There's people that have gone without Haaland and not done well because they haven't had the players that have done well. And there's people that have got Haaland and owned Saka and Palmer and still done well owning Haaland. So it's however you want to look at it, but it's been a pretty solid week.
Yeah, look, I've had a good one. 76 points. I've been saying for a few weeks, it's like what I need is that week when Haaland blanks that I hit the captaincy. So I've obviously captained Saka for the last 2. That didn't happen last week. I still had a good rank rise. But to have the combination of Haaland blanking and then you hit the captain at the same time, yeah, you're going to get a real jump. So 76 points for me this week. Trent and Jota, 16 points in the early kickoff. Another 8 for Bumo, 32 from captain Saka. Assists for Palmer and Solanke yesterday for a total of 11 between those two. It's a good week. There's no point in painting it any different.
Got 150k Gameweek rank, right? 146k Gameweek rank,
inside.
Whereas the previous week you did really well and your Gameweek rank was outside the top 500,000. So this week, Gameweek rank is a real good indication of where you are compared to everyone else in the week. And it's given you, what, 30k rise?
And it's fairly obvious. Let's be real about it. Saka blanks and Haaland gets the hat trick and gets sort of 17 times 2. What's my game week rank?
No, you're going to be
my overall rank.
You're going to be the same at that point. We're the same rank
if that happens.
Yeah.
So I mean, just to give you a bit of context, I'm Andy tweeting me at the message, James, you're going to win it all. And I know he's partying Jess and stuff. But take Nick from who got the assist. He's 393rd in the world, right?
Mm.
He's got Haaland.
Yeah.
He captained Bukayo Saka this week.
Yep. I was going to do that.
Yeah, I know. Stop.
No,
Don't
wait,
start.
wait. Let's stop. Let's stop. Because a couple of people did put that on the internet. I am not one that likes to blame other content creators for my fantasy decisions. At the end of the day, if I wanted to captain Bukayo Saka, guess what? I would have captained Bukayo Saka, right? I can't. I get it. The only thing I would say is I think Haaland at home, like you would have captained him had you owned him, right?
100%, no doubt.
I just think Fulham are not as bad a team, and we got to see it this weekend.
Yeah, but him is different
Completely. And whatever's happened in the past, he plays Wolves and Southampton next. So it's not like a time to knee jerk and move away or anything like that. You're not gonna do that. And the flip side is I still own Saka. So at least I did pick up the points, right? I had a green arrow as well this week. I'm up to 300k, and it's been fairly consistent. Like I've not been, other than Gameweek 1, which is kind of a bit of a lottery, I've not been outside the top 500k all season. It's been fairly steady in and around that. Up to 300k now, and off the back of wildcard, from wildcard to be steadily rising and have no problems. I'm pretty happy with. I had Trent's 8-pointer, Rico Lewis, clean sheet wipeout, but did pop up with the assist of all
world class assist for Jeremy.
Of course, Saka, Bomo, and Solanke were my only other returns. My fail was Haaland captaincy. I didn't have double Arsenal defence. A lot did, and got wiped out like you did. My thing at the moment is my envious look is double Liverpool defence. Though I don't know if I'd be comfortable buying Konate, so I might.
And Alisson injured now.
Yeah,
I feel right.
And Cole Palmer is the other one that I look at. But apart from that, I don't really have eyes on too many other players where I'm like, I wish I could have, because you can't have them all. But those are the ones that I look at and I think, But, that's the game. Up to 300k. I'm quite happy,
Yeah, you should be. It's a really good start, boss. I really don't know what I'm doing yet. My kind of mental outlook on this at the moment is basically take the week off from FPL thinking in terms of my own team, because as inevitably happens during international breaks, something will happen that probably makes the decision for me.
Yeah.
I have 2 free transfers. I can get Haaland in for free. It's very easy done. Watkins to Haaland, Saka to 5.3 or below. I would probably just go for Tyler Diblin, especially with the timing of them having Leicester at home next. I could even field him right and feel quite comfortable about that.
I've got him in my bus team at the moment, Pleb.
Yeah, I can understand that. So, look, I can do it. Every time I look at it, I hate it. You know what I hate as well? It's like I know that I'm flipping that back in game week 12. For me, psychologically as well, because that I think would be the right time to flip it back, to go back to a Saka or Palmer if I take either of them out, and also bring Watkins back in as well, or an alternative like an Isak, whatever it feels at that point. I'd be selling Haaland when he's playing Tottenham at home.
Awful. I know what you mean. I know what you mean about that, because take. I've got Haaland and I'm the other side of the equation. That decision for me is taken out of my mind because of his next 2 fixtures. So I'm now looking at what am I doing in game week 11 or 10? And is that the point where I want to come off Haaland because I've got his good fixtures out of the way? So I'm looking at selling him around 11, 12, maybe as an option anyway. So I don't see why you would want to buy him now if moving him on in 2 or 3 weeks was the strategy. It wouldn't make sense. You'd kind of just...
I know people have been looking at the period sort of 12 to 16 for Haaland, right? So it's Tottenham at home, Liverpool away, Forest at home, Palace away, Manchester United at home, and Villa away. I still think he's best captaincy for 4 of the 6.
Okay.
13 at Liverpool is understandable. And I think when they go to Villa, you can take him on as well. Things like Palmer away to Everton, for example, might look quite good. But I wouldn't say they're massive standouts. And even in 13, when Haaland goes to Liverpool, like the standouts to go against. Like, they're not great. It's like Arsenal away to West Ham and Chelsea at home to Villa, Tottenham at home to Fulham. Like the alternatives in terms of standouts aren't great, I don't think. In the 2 weeks, you'd really want to take him on. So I realised looking at the fixtures, you go, it's getting more difficult for City. It gets better again for the likes of Arsenal, Chelsea, which is kind of relatable, particularly Saka Palmer. I don't know, just analyse it and look a little bit closer. He'll always, if you own him, he's always going to be so difficult to take out, clearly. And at the moment, I've had a couple of fortuitous weeks where he's blanked. We might talk some of the reasons about maybe why that's happened a little bit in terms of relatable back to Rodri's injury, I think, and how City have been setting up. Yeah, I could easily end up bringing him back in here and easily end up not. I much prefer my team without him. But I also recognise that he's probably about to play the two worst defences in the league.
It's funny because I've tinkered with getting rid of him, and I don't know my team without him for the next couple of weeks. It's one of those where you can look at both sides of it and be happy. And this is why it's play it your way.
So for me, with my rank now, right, it's like I've had a great start. It's very clear he could go off in either or even both of these next two fixtures. And the great start I've had, if I continue to go against him, is pretty much destroyed. I'd still be in a decent position, but where I am now, whereas I could put him in, he does well. It's like, right, I've covered it and I'm shielding my position.
Well, this is my question, overall, James, right? Now that you're up in the nosebleed territory, does your approach change? Like we've never really been managers that kind of think in that way, but like you got to start thinking a little bit defensive. Like at what point do you start thinking?
It's so early.
Yeah, I would agree
honestly,
with you.
There's someone now who will be ranked about 2 million who will finish above me, like certainty.
No doubt about it, of course.
But what do you mean? No doubt. You don't think I can win?
No. Statistically, it's probably a 99.9% probability that will happen. So I'm just playing the odds, James, that there will be someone outside 2 million.
Look, I said, someone said to me in pre-season.
I think Andy's 2 million. Let's talk. So there you go. He's
Andy,
one.
Andy will beat me, no doubt. Our good old slippers.
No, he won't. He keeps playing Bruno.
Yeah, well, I'm not ruling out bringing in Bruno and captaining him in game weekend still, mate.
Me neither.
That's just
to add balance to that Bruno comment. I only say it because he gets so much stick for it, and he's not making bad decisions. It's just people like to jump on it. I think Bruno is an interesting shout.
People
again, he hit the bar at the weekend, outcomes. And he's definitely imminent. So you don't switch your mentality to being defensive.
No, I mean, it's way too early.
Definitely.
The question I got asked in pre-season was, what's your goal in FPL this season? I said first. And it's the first time I'd ever said it because it's like, well, shoot for the stars. And that's not why I went against Haaland. I went against Haaland because I thought it was the best strategy, actually. You're never going to win FPL by just doing the same thing as everybody else. Now I'm in a position where I could get Haaland in and it consolidates for a while. Then I want to take him on again. But then also there's a period from game week 18 onwards where there's 5 fixtures there and it's like, oh my God, to take him on over that period. But it's over Christmas and stuff. He might get rotated a little bit, for example, because the fixtures are good and stuff. My instinct more, Suj, is put the foot down and keep going. And it'll be what it'll be. And we'll sit here in 3 weeks and it's like he's destroyed Wolves and Southampton. We go, okay.
And it's got Bournemouth and Brighton after. And Brighton defensively, I mean, yeah.
I'm not so worried about those two. There's still away games. There's still more ones that feel like you can take. Wolves at the moment, look, it's not great. We'll cover. The scary one is obviously Southampton at home is pretty scary. But then, look, they went an hour at the Emirates without really conceding any real big chances. And it kind of opened up where Arsenal hit the accelerator after obviously Southampton had scored. But yeah, you'd be amazed if Haaland went through the next 2 and didn't do well in at least one of them, wouldn't you?
Yeah, for sure.
And also, the biggest thing for me as well is I've been quite comfortable with my captaincy choices to take him on. In fact, I even look at 9, which is the worst week where Haaland plays Southampton at home. And I think, do you know what? I'm quite happy to captain Palmer against Newcastle. I'm quite happy to take that. Game week 8, at the moment, it's bust on Saka at Bournemouth. I think the alternative for me with what I have in the team at the moment, it sounds like a wild one, is actually Jota at home to Chelsea. don't want to go Solanke against West Ham. It might be the right decision, but
If I own
I don't want to
Solanke
do that.
versus West Ham and Jota versus Chelsea, I'd be captaining Solanke over
knew
West
that
Ham.
I knew you would say that.
Yeah, I would be. But look, we were better defensively at the weekend, but Ipswich didn't offer too much after the first 15, 20 minutes, let's say 25 minutes. Then it was pretty easy going, really. So I don't think you can judge West Ham defensively
I just
on the
can't
weekend.
see us putting up a big score against you. I can't see it.
Mm,
I just know what that fixture is normally like.
yeah. Yeah, I would say. Look, we've got a nice 2-week international break before we've got to even think about that. Good. Let's talk about the fixtures, because as we do, we'll obviously cover off players that did well and players that didn't, and who might be piquing interest. Crystal Palace 0, Liverpool 1. Palace now still winless this season, sitting in the bottom 3 with just the 3 draws. Another clean sheet for Liverpool. I have had talk, like, look, they now play Chelsea and then Arsenal. And I've seen people talking about selling Trent. He's the highest point scoring defender in the game this season so far. And I look at that and I'm like, yeah.
But he should be.
Yeah, he's the most expensive. I get it. But he's living up to billing. So he's not like, I think it's.
You see,
it's
I don't think people think he is.
Well, he can only do what be the highest point scorer in the game. How many more points should he have to score than the others?
I mean, for me,
how many
his
more
price,
points would Haaland have to score than any other striker?
41 points from 7. Seems pretty good to me.
6
nearly
a game.
6 a game, nearly. That's great.
Give me 6 a game for the rest of the season. I'll be happy with that.
Absolutely. So no, there's not an intention for me, but I get it. I don't think
it's because they need to find money, right?
Exactly. It's not people going, I've had enough for Trent. It's okay, I want to find the money and stuff like that. So I understand.
The thing with Trent is, if you're going to sell Trent to find money, you want to drop, right? And if you're going to drop, the 4 millions is just literally your 2-pointers all day long. And even at the 4.5s, doesn't fill me with joy.
No, it's nothing there I particularly like.
Milenkovic is the only one that I look at and I think, yeah, probably, maybe. But again, it's not filling me with joy. So I'm like, well, may as well stick with Trent because he's still capable of the 15-pointer if they keep a clean sheet and he picks up an attacking return and a bit of bonus. So Trent stays for me at the moment. And defensively, Liverpool looking good. Like the next couple are not great, but I think longer term, if I was going to double up on defence right now, I'd almost be tempted to go double Liverpool than double Arsenal, other than the fixtures.
Not for me.
With Addison out.
Yeah,
we don't know.
To be honest, that would have been my
is?
opinion anyway. I think Liverpool have had. It's worth remembering a kind fixture list so far. The only team, kind of really from expected top 10, arguably even that they played, is Manchester United at Old Trafford, and yeah, we don't need to go down that route again. So now let's see. Let's see what we think about Liverpool defensively after they've got Chelsea, Arsenal, Brighton, Villa. The next 4 out the way, right? And come through that period, and then it's Southampton away, and then City away. So for me, no. And we don't know the extent of this Alisson injury, right? I mean, it's fairly clear anyone who's seen the incident is going to go, okay, right, that's probably a best case scenario. I would say maybe back for the Arsenal game in game week 9.
It's a hammy, isn't it?
But it could be like 2 months or something, man. And then what? Now, it will bring Kelleher to the table under that circumstance. So you're suddenly, I know a lot of people have been looking at Konate. I think Konate, I want to say, is the 3rd highest scoring defender so far this season.
And he's 5.2 is a good price for him.
And started the game less than a lot of other people, because obviously he came on at Ipswich in game week 1. And I think much of the concern with him had been, right, when it goes to 3 games a week, what's going to happen here? And despite the fact the fixtures have been, let's just say, kind, he's not been left out since game week 1. So we've got to start considering it at that price bracket going, well, he's a roughly 2 million saving of Trent. But obviously now, Kelleher is 4.4. If suddenly Alisson's like, right, yeah, it's severe hamstring injury, he's out till Christmas, then Kelleher's going to get massively considered, isn't he? Just by virtue of being Liverpool's goalkeeper. But he's not Alisson. And remember that when you're thinking about other Liverpool defensive. So again, to come back to your point of people selling Trent, yeah, I understand it. My personal take would be I would prefer to pay the extra money for Trent. There is no thought in my mind at the moment to remove him. For me, he's in there mainly as the offensive stuff, which hasn't quite hit the numbers I'd have hoped from that perspective yet. Maybe there won't be as many clean sheets and he'll start getting more attacking returns in some of these forthcoming games. Yeah, he scored at the Etihad last year. He's any game, any time. He assisted at the Emirates in the FA Cup last year. It's any time with him.
This is why I ended up with Trent on wildcard, was the fact that he's just consistent, and you've got two rolls of the dice, both ends of the pitch. So yeah, for me, he's not particularly going anywhere. I'd say concern. That's a stupid statement. Mo Salah being subbed early is going to sting for a few people. I don't think.
Week.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything particularly overly to worry about, but
no, not at all.
It's just frustrating.
Two sides of this.
And Diaz being benched just a week after the big wildcard week where a lot went with him.
Yeah, we'll come back to that one in a second. With Salah, like, I think there is genuine concern that in a lot of games he's ending up holding that touchline quite a lot, but he will still get into dangerous positions and still get returns. He's too good in front of goal, basically. So if you're on Mo, I wouldn't have like concerns. If you want to flip your team about, I could totally get someone sitting there with Salah looking at Liverpool's next few fixtures and thinking, well, this is going to be easy if you don't have Haaland, right? I understand that. For Diaz owners, there was a lot of noise even early on Friday night, which I wasn't quite sure about. You know, people getting genuinely concerned that he was going to get benched at Palace, which obviously proved to be correct. I think the thing is, if I compare, say, Jota Nunes and Diaz Gakpo, and listen, I wish I'd been on Diaz so far, right? Because he's got more points, etc. But Gakpo has always looked like a threat there. Like, Gakpo played really well in Milan. That was Gakpo's, I think, first start in the league. Gakpo had a really good Euros. So I think there's always been a little bit of concern that at any time Gakpo will just play instead of Diaz. Now, Nunes played instead of Jota in the Bournemouth game, I think, a few weeks ago. But that doesn't feel as concerning to me. Like, I've mentioned about the idea, maybe even me captaining Jota against Chelsea with them having a couple of suspensions. I wouldn't doubt that Jota plays that game. It's nothing to do with South American qualifiers and that sort of thing. It's to do with, I'm certain that Jota is clear favoured over Nunes, and it's a big game. He'll play. Diaz feels a little bit more dicey, I would suggest.
Yep.
Off the last international break, interestingly, Slot said afterwards, he said that the intention had been to play Gakpo. I think that was the Nottingham Forest game in game week 4. There might be something in that as well, returning after an international break and having a flat performance. We should maybe consider that. He said he'd intended to play Gakpo, but Diaz had returned in better condition from the internationals than Gakpo. Obviously, Gakpo's played for the Netherlands as well. So I don't think it's not time for Diaz owners to panic, but there's a stiffen up of the fixtures where you may want to look at some other things. Robertson is another one where that seemed quite late, and it would be really unfortunate for owners this particular week because there was a team that went round shortly before deadline which didn't have Diaz and Szoboszlai in it, did have Robertson in it. Robertson obviously didn't start. I've long felt with Robertson that this threat via Tsimikas was there, and I don't like him particularly as an asset at the moment. Like, if I was to go double Liverpool defence, which I'm throwing in Konate or Kelleher rather than Van Dijk or Robertson as it would stand at the moment. For Palace, disappointing. Mateta dropped. And Ketcher as the centre forward. Ismail Assar brought in. Sarr ended up playing at wing back because Daniel Munoz got injured. There was a debut for Trevor Chalobah, who I think will make them better, but is obviously really slow on Jota's goal. Just doesn't react very well. They're really flat at the moment, Palace. Rory McLaughlin-Dowd's on Clash of Correspondence tomorrow. They're kind of keen to get an idea from him. Like why? Why is it felt like it? None of us would have had on the bingo card that we'd get to this point and Palace still wouldn't have won.
Not with the end of last season, no. Like, Eze's down to 15.6% ownership. I mean, he'll be in a lot of dead teams with that kind of ownership. I wonder what his live ownership's like. You think it's going to be less than 10% now, isn't it?
It'll be getting low. And I think the next 4 fixtures are fine. But actually, ironically, if you look for Eze, the next 2 games, so Nottingham Forest away and Tottenham at home, I mean, arguably the better fixture is Tottenham.
Yeah, Forest isn't. They're going to be defensively
Look at
stubborn.
defensively. We'll speak about
Spurs
it in a bit.
Spurs and Wolves after that. So those two are not too bad. But
Yeah, and then like Fulham at home, okay as well. But it's like, okay, do we need to reassess Fulham a little bit as well? So I get people wanting to move on, but I don't think it's in a desperate need. This week feels a little bit awkward because I think some of the players you'd want to consider in and around that price have got more difficult fixtures. Like, for example, you say about Bumo at a similar price. It's not, didn't you want to do that last week or the week before? It feels like most have already got there. If you were considering like a Matoma after yesterday, it's like it's Newcastle away. It feels a lot like that. I think if people want to move it on, I understand that. But it's also worth saying he's had a brilliant chance and should score towards the end of the game. It does feel inevitable that it will swing at some point for Eze and he'll have a good run. I don't think he's people's, in most cases, biggest problems, but clearly it'd be frustrating. Has he returned at all over this period since the last international break?
Over this period, I thought you were going to say this season.
So since the Leicester
it's just
game,
it's just one goal all season so far. No assists.
At Chelsea, the long range goal. That's it. One attacking return.
23 points all season, mate.
I mean, there's possibly something there to say about Palace's results, right? Key Talisman's only got one attacking return in 7 games. Not good. Listen, they're not decided by what happens against Liverpool at home, and they grew into the game a little bit. Kelleher, by the way, if people unaware, why didn't he come on? He missed the game through illness. He will almost certainly play in replacement for Alisson.
Arsenal 3, Southampton 1. It did look ropey at half time. I was thinking, do you know what? If you'd have said to me at half time, who's now more likely to go and return, Saka or Erling Haaland? I wasn't actually worried. I thought, okay, Saka might pick me up one return in the second half, whereas Haaland could pick up 2 or 3. Completely flipped the other way. And then, to be honest, I think, no, not quite, but the clean sheet wipeout for Arsenal, because so many are on double defence, was almost worth more than Saka returning. Not quite, but it felt like that goal that Southampton scored was quite helpful to me with only one defensive Arsenal asset.
I feel like this was the bigger team news shot from the weekend because I think certainly I got the impression from my deadline stream a lot of people wanted to go and pump Martinelli or Trossard. And actually, I'll be very honest, my answer generally of the two was Trossard. Now, neither of them started. Martinelli obviously came on and scored. That felt like a real shock. The reason I think it felt like a shock was because Arsenal played Tuesday. So I don't think many of us had really considered that Martinelli or Trossard could be in for a rotation. I think there is a learning off that. And Clates has spoke about this before, like kind of core key players that Arsenal have won't get rotated, of which Saka falls into line of that, your Declan Rice, Saliba, Raya, etc. Martinelli's and Trossard's and these sort of players, like always are. Kai Havertz is part of that core now, where he's probably not going to get rotated too much. So it's just a little bit of learning on that. I did think there was a possibility that Thomas Partey played right back. I actually had that in my predicted lineup this week because Arsenal do have an issue with the fullbacks at the moment. Tomiyasu just come back available. Ben White's had problems. They didn't want to take a gamble with Jury and Timber at the weekend. I wouldn't actually be surprised if we see a bit of Tomiyasu in these forthcoming games for Arsenal because there are some more difficult ones. Like I don't think it's improbable that Tomiyasu against Salah, for example, even from left back, in game week 9 or against the Gordon in game week 10. I don't think we should think that that's an impossibility. So again, if you did want to invest in Arsenal defensively, it would still be Saliba, Gabriel, Raya for me. Because I think there would be a slight doubt on Calafiori and things like Liverpool at home. But I guess also if you wanted to invest in Arsenal defence, you'd have already done it. And suddenly, oh my God, they've conceded against Leicester and Southampton. No one wants to do that anymore. Do you know what? I look at the goal they conceded at the weekend, and I genuinely think that if that's a more prominent player than a Cameron Archer, William Saliba, don't let him get the shot away. Like I genuinely think if he's playing against like a Solanke or a Watkins in that moment, I just think he's much tighter and closer to it and more aggressive about it. I think he thinks, go on him. And I can understand that to a certain extent. So I think Arsenal they're more switched on in the bigger games. Don't be surprised if they keep a clean sheet like at St James's or Stamford Bridge or at home to Liverpool. There's definitely a concentration element to this, I think. I don't think that goal happens if it's against a stronger opponent. Archer does well, but I think Saliba he's kind of easy about his defending in the moment. He feels comfortable about the situation. It obviously takes a slight nick off him, which then kills Raya in terms of trying to save the shot. So I don't have concerns about like double Arsenal defence. For me, the coming off it would only be I need to find some money and there's some difficult fixtures coming up. So yes, okay, but quite happy to just keep playing Gabriel Raya throughout these fixtures because I think the concentrations levels be higher in the more difficult ones. I think more and more people are looking at Havertz, and that would probably be my biggest reason to come off of double Arsenal defence. If I decide that's an attacking player that I want to put in, I still have a preference for the double defence. But at the same time, I think Havertz is a better option than a lot of the forwards at a similar price.
Well, look,
I would like to have four, even for this run, I think I would like to have four Arsenal players.
He's got the phantom injury now, hasn't he? The Havertz, the
can't say that.
International,
boss.
what? International break injury.
Can't say that.
Why?
He's probably legit.
Oh, you think so?
That he plays against Bournemouth in Gameweek 8 with no concern whatsoever. I mean, okay.
Yeah, exactly that. So, yeah, I haven't ruled out. Like, if I was looking for money, Ollie Watkins to Havertz would bank me a nice bit of money to make a move elsewhere. I don't see myself doing it, despite Villa not being great yesterday.
Anyway, on a serious point, you do raise the fact that he has been pulled out of the Germany squad. Please don't buy someone like Kai Havertz early this week, guys. Please do obviously take the info. I think these next four fixtures are probably quite definitive for Arsenal. I've said this in pre-season that I thought if they walked out of Chelsea away in game week 11 top of the league, they'd win it. They are favourites with the bookies now, you know that.
Well, that's a lot to do with the fact that Rodri's obviously not now available for the rest of the season.
It's also got a lot to do with the fact that City could have a big points deduction towards the end of the season. There's a little bit of an impact. No, genuinely is, because City are about 8 favourites for like relegation and stuff, right? So that is factored in. But yeah, with the bookies, Arsenal are favourites now.
Well, I didn't realise. Yeah, I think I don't think the points deduction is going to happen, James, if I'm honest with you. So
okay. Blow everyone's idea. Yeah, I mean, it's for fantasy, there's no point talking about it. For Southampton, kind of real change of strategy. Basically picked 5 defensive players. It was the first time we'd seen Ryan Manning this season. Tyler Dibbling had good moments in the game. I think it's absolutely clear if you're buying a midfielder in FPL under 5 million, that's your guy. There's nothing else I could even recommend to you at the moment. Ross Stewart started, and I thought that this was coming. And he's gone off injured in the first half. And unfortunately, the big reason why he's not been a success so far at Southampton is exactly this. Can't stay out of the treatment room. So if fit, I think that was the best forward at that valuation. I don't think that there's anything else worthwhile going to. So what I mean is if people have gone for Stewart and they're sitting there going, shit, that's my third forward. You probably weren't starting in many weeks anyway. I try and leave that unless you're readjusting the structure, or if you're jumping up to like a 5.5 mid, but I wouldn't be going, oh shit, he's injured, I need to jump to another 4.5. There isn't one worth going to, basically.
The only time Stewart ever made it into a wildcard draft was because I just wanted to cheap out that position. And when you cheap out that position, the third striker, he's sitting second or third on your bench week in, week out anyway. It's like when Barco was there and he just was third sub week in, week out. The fact that he wasn't even in the league didn't really matter. I would very rarely see a situation where I'm going to be playing that player. So, yeah, for me, it's just like, leave it be. I just didn't like, if you got 5 defenders, it's different if you completely bomb one out to something completely cheap. When you've only got 3 forwards, I'm just not a fan of completely putting a line through one of that positions because it's not useful to you in any way. And even the 5.5, like, even if you were to find the million to try and upgrade it, nothing great there. I mean, Delap's gone over 5.5 now. He's 5.6, and he's probably the best of the bunch. It's just not my cup of tea. But yeah, I agree with you. If you had Stewart, just cheap it out.
I think the time for Arsenal investment was, despite these obviously conceding these 2 games, the XGC is very low in those 2 games, by the way, whereas it was quite high in some games, such as City away and Villa away, right? So, okay, it's come around about. I think if you were invested in Arsenal, though, you'd probably have done it over the last couple, haven't you? Like, yeah. If you're not on Saka, what are you going to do? Shit, I need to buy Saka now. No. If you're without, you're without, aren't you? I can't see you forcing that in now with what's to come.
Agreed. James, I did a bit of maths this morning. Did you know that 5 of the Premier League, 10 Premier League games shed 27 goals this weekend? The other 5 shed 4.
Okay.
Bonkers how there's 5 games with 4 or more goals, and then where we've had so few clean sheets, 2-0-0s in a weekend. I don't remember 2-0-0s in a Premier League weekend for absolutely ages.
Listen, I was with shout out to one of our patrons, Brad Lewington and
Yeah.
Sam Murray, our Brighton correspondent. Met them in the bar at the Amex,
Yeah.
and we were watching Villa United, and it's like, oh shit. So Sky had Everton Newcastle 0-0 last night, and they've had Villa United terrible 0-0 as well. Like, yeah, Brighton Tottenham's going to be batshit. I mean, we knew it was going to be batshit anyway, but it was clear as day, wasn't it?
The reason I mentioned because this is an 8-goal thriller at Brentford. Brentford 5, Wolves 3. I can believe the Brentford 5. And Wolves haven't been awful either. So to score 3, I suppose, yeah, I didn't see this going off in the way that it did. And so many returns for the defenders as well. Pinnock getting on the score sheet, Collins with a goal and an assist.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously a really big chance and a really high XG for Nathan Collins. I think he's in the top 5 now for expected goal involvement for defenders, I think, this season. Wolves fans should, if they're looking at the 5-3 defeat, don't want to go looking more at the underlying numbers, with Brentford having an XG of over 4, 8 big chances for Brentford to Wolves is 1. Actually, this was worse for Wolves than what the final scoreline suggested. Couple of points on Brentford first. Firstly, did you see Thomas Frank's comment after the game?
I didn't. What did he say?
He's because obviously it was 86 seconds, wasn't it, that they took to score this week?
Yeah,
and he said we've been practicing winning the coin toss all week and we lost it, and that's why it took so long, which I thought was really good. It is incredible. 4 games in a row.
Yeah.
And now the reason you've got an excuse here, they've scored within the first minute they've had the ball in this one. Let's put it that way. So, yeah, I mean, the teams are absolute. I looked at it this last week and I was like, there isn't anything scientific in it as such. They get the ball forward quickly, they get numbers forward quickly, and they pick up second balls, and they're intent on getting the ball in the box if they can during that period. But there isn't anything that's absolutely scientific, i.e. they're doing the same thing in every game. We've not even set up the same way in this game. Carvalho's come out the team, Bumo back to the right. We said last week, Sade not through the middle. Well, this week he was. But Brentford have scored 5 and he scored none. Did he got an assist though, Sade, didn't he? I think
at the weekend.
I think so.
I don't think he did.
Did he not get anything, Kevin Sade?
I don't think he did, James. I'm going to double check that for you.
No, you're right. Yeah,
I don't think he did. He's got nothing.
Yeah, and he played through the middle. If I'd said to you he's going to play through the middle and Brentford will get 5, you'd have been all over that, wouldn't you, potentially? So, okay, that might come from him. I think he's not at probably the required fitness level that Thomas Frank quite wants yet. You might find it's a couple more games and then he goes on a run. I wouldn't be surprised. Even though he's not returned here, I think that really needs monitoring now that he's gone back through the middle. That would be the one that you want to get hold of. There are games coming up, United, Ipswich, he could have some fun in terms of him behind and stuff, perhaps. Another return for Bumo.
Yeah,
only the penalty though,
so consistent.
A little disappointing, considering they've scored 5, but exactly what you said. Absolutely brilliant consistently. He's just
that price 7 million and said he's 7 point whatever 7 plus VAT now. I was looking at it. He's 7.5 now. I think I picked him up at 7. You picked him up at 7. Where else do you go at 7.5? Bowen? But that's it. Like, I think he's going to end up. He's going to end up being one of the most consistent players for a long period. Like, you're not particularly fearful about Manchester United at the weekend. He'll have a chance or two.
Even if you are, like, to kind of go back to the point, if you were an Eze owner still and you don't have Bumo, are you like, oh my God, I've got to make this move?
Well, you got to find 0.6 million to do it.
I just feel like I just feel like you'd have been in a position thinking, I've got to do it this coming week, I think.
But he's got a prolonged good period now. United, Ipswich, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester. But he's basically that position in my team. I'm not even looking at. Like, he's going nowhere for a long period.
Not at all. At least up to sort of like game week 13. We've spoken about this before as well, that West Ham's really good run of fixtures starts in game week 14. I think that's right, isn't it, Suj?
around about them.
Yeah, game at 14, you go Leicester away, then Wolves at home. And that's when Boomers gets a bit more difficult. So you could see that now, Boomer to Bowen over that period. But it would also be perfectly reasonable to keep holding and keep investing in Boomer. I think there's a fair chance with the fixtures that are coming up. Don't think you should be surprised if you get to that point in game at 14, he's like 7.7 or 7.8. And at that point, you're thinking, do I just leave him? Is he like season keeper for me? And he can be, right? Because he's talisman for them. For Wolves, this was not good. And I spoke last week about hoping that they would give Gary O'Neill more time. Yeah, I think there's a few Wolves fans were at kind of last straw stage at the weekend. They made a sub where they brought on Hwang rather than Guedes. And the away fans were singing, you don't know what you're doing. And once you hit that point, you were in massive trouble. I have major sympathy because the fixtures they've had.
Awful.
Yeah, man. Even the two games that they've not had against like expected top 8 opponents have been Forest away and Brentford away. Like it's rough. Even after City this in game week 8, it's Brighton away in game week 9. But I will tell you honestly, Suj, I'm very interested in getting a Wolves attacker. We are getting close to that on radar point of that period from arguably game week 9 based on some of the stuff I've seen yesterday. And we saw the weekend before from Brighton at Stamford Bridge. And then the fixture run really kind of starts from Palace at home now, game week 10. Yeah, Matthias Cunha is massively on my radar. And just a note on him as well, Suj, which is quite interesting because he's only got 3 attacking returns so far this season, Matthias Cunha. No assists so far, 3 goals scored. Now, I think considering the fixtures they've had, I think that's actually pretty reasonable from Cunha, considering, again, the fixtures they've had. What's interesting is he's scored in all games that they've lost, right? So he scored in a 6-2 defeat to Chelsea, he scored in a 3-1 defeat at Villa, and he scored in a 5-3 defeat at Brentford. But he got 2 bonus points in the defeat at Villa, scoring once. He got top bonus Saturday. Wow. Despite them losing 5-3 and him only scoring once. I also think Strand Larsen's finish for the second goal was absolutely beautiful. And I'm sitting there with Vardy, looking at something like Vardy to Strand Larsen, maybe even for the Brighton fixture in game week 9 and going, I like that, but I can also put it up to Cunha. And it's little things like, yeah, James, definitely get Haaland in. I know that I'm probably cutting myself off of someone like Cunha, thinking about Haaland versus Cunha. We're not really having that debate, but I know once I do it, I want to get Cunha, I think. And I know that if I put Haaland in this week, that's probably going to be off the table for me ongoing. They could even have something here where they change manager and go on a little run. Or I just think they'll pick it up because the fixtures will be better anyway. The real concern
and they need to, right? There comes a point where it's like, if you don't start picking up points week after week, it's dangerous, and they'll know, right, okay, let's do it. It's probably too good, bolder statement to say I'm not worried about them, but I would phrase it as I wouldn't surprise me if they get out of this, because they have shown patches of quality in the games in between.
I think they will get out of it, and I think they would get out of it with Gary O'Neill personally.
I agree with you as well. It just doesn't make pretty reading when you're conceding an average of 3 goals a game in the first 7 game weeks of the season. Having said that, 6 against Chelsea, 5 against Brentford racks it up, doesn't it?
But defensively, it's a mess at the moment. So Dawson came back in the team at the moment. Gary O'Neill spoke after the game about possibly needing to move to a back 3. But they only have 3 centre-backs, basically, in Dawson, Toti Gomez and Santiago Bueno. So you could move the system to a back 3. Then if one of them gets injured, what are you doing? Are you moving like Lamina into the back 3? Or you moving Semedo there and playing Matt Doherty as a right wing back, for example? It doesn't feel better. Ait-Nouri is also going to get some attention. So he's obviously scored in the last 2, which I think, again, because they've lost both games, feels like it's been a little bit hidden. We spoke about players at that bracket and nothing really appeals, kind of the 4.5 range. Well, he's about to come into a run of fixtures where people are definitely going to want to go there, but he'll be going there again for the offensive stuff.
Not the defensive
stuff. I must steal Bradley Parker's line. He tweeted, I told him I was going to steal it. He said that swapping Jose Sarr for Sam Johnston, you might as well change, like, reorder the deck chairs on the Titanic. Like, he's just not worth shoving about at the moment. So I don't think they're quite happy with Johnson. I did think that there might be a bad impression from Wolves fans to him because he played for West Brom previously as well. But they haven't had that for Craig Dawson, in fairness. Yeah, they were a mess defensively, but I'm quite interested in Cunha and Larson moving forward. And also keep an eye on Carlos Borges, or Carlos Forbes, as he's now known, who obviously got in the team at the weekend. I think he'll stay in the team. He's one to keep an eye on because none of the other Wolves midfielder, I know Lamina and João Gomez will get the odd return, but if you wanted to invest in a midfielder at that range, he might be one that's on nobody's radar now, who in a couple of weeks might be. So I'd keep an eye on him. But yeah, I kind of really want to get Cunha soon. Suj, he's on radar.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think many will. Strand Larson is the one that's getting a little bit more of the attention, I would say, just because he's had more returns.
I think that finish for the second goal is incredible. It's so good for a big lad. Yeah,
he's a good player. Yeah. Let's talk about Leicester 1, Bournemouth 0. Leicester, we so like clean sheet and a win at home. Bournemouth had their chances. They racked up an XG of over 2. Whereas Leicester didn't even get to an XG of 1. 5 big chances for Bournemouth as well. So you could say Leicester rode their luck a little bit, and Bournemouth definitely. I mean, second half were all over it, but they held on. And at the end of the day, it's a great result for them.
Yeah, big win. I was asked on one of my streams at the weekend which one of the 3 promoted teams I thought would win first. I was like, I've got to say Leicester with what is coming up with the fixtures. They definitely could have conceded here, but I think their games are liable to be lower scoring than many of the other teams have been near the bottom of the table just because of how Cooper sets up his teams. I think we knew this with Nottingham Forest previously as well. So I don't think I'd want to go looking at investment in Leicester, but eyes will look at Southampton away, Forest at home, Ipswich away, and temptation. Now, my problem, this is what happens. I spoke about this with people who want to go for Everton players, kind of similar to this. It's like every week you look and it's like, that fixture's all right, that fixture's all right. So like I know I've said about maybe moving to Cunha. Leicester got Forest at home in 9. Now, have I got enough of adjustment in my mind to think, oh yeah, I want to flip that because Forest are much improved defensively and doing really well under Nuno? Like, is that right? If I get to that point in 9 and I've got Vardy at home to Forest and I'm considering going Cunha away to Brighton, like, is that right to flip it at that point?
No, you'd stick with Vardy. For that fixture, you'd play Vardy.
Yeah,
I would anyway.
And then they've got Ipswich away, so am I flipping it in the next one, which is really then the start for Wolves? Now, you could say wait till 11, Leicester go to Man United, and Wolves have got Southampton at home and flip it there. By the way, I'm not definitively going for Cunha. I'm just using it as a reference. So I think there's a danger here because I know people have gone Mavadidi as well. You keep looking at these fixtures because you've invested in, frankly, these shit teams, unfortunately, and you'll get stuck with players a little bit. And I've done the same here with Vardy. But I'm already looking to get off because he's not having the chance you'd want. He did have a good chance in the first half. He's completely fluffed his lines. I don't feel like they're going to score many goals. And therefore, I kind of want to get off that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a few. I mean, even Buonanotte come back now and got on the score sheet. But I feel like if you had... I'm looking at... They've got 3 good fixtures. But really, I'd just go to Dibbling. I know Dibbling's gone up from 4, 5, 6. And they've got City in a couple of games. But either side of that, Leicester first and then Everton and Wolves, you'd just rather go Dibbling, I think, to save the money. I'm not looking at anything from Leicester. Bournemouth-wise, a few that would be on Semenyo will probably be disappointed that he didn't get anything in this game.
I think Semenyo owners are really disappointed. So, yeah, but I think if you'd have said Semenyo owners, like, it's Southampton, Leicester, you're going to get 1 return. Those who were investing, I don't think they'd have bothered.
Because then you walk into Arsenal, Villa, City.
Now you're looking at it going, exactly. So it's kind of preempting, the outcome, the swing of the fixtures, etc. And listen, Semenyo is, I think he'll end up being the kind of the new talisman for them at the weekend. He still ended up having, a decent underline at the weekends, not too bad. Sort of expected goal involvement 0.3, but it's probably not what people were hoping for going into this one. Arsenal, Villa, City next. Then Brentford, Brighton. It's not a great run, but you could definitely hold a player at that value. I wouldn't be looking at anything else, Bournemouth wise, or I wouldn't be looking at investing in Semenyo now just because it's Arsenal next. I don't know why you'd want to. You're more thinking about selling the assets. And it doesn't feel like I've seen anybody on anything Bournemouth other than basically Semenyo. Neil Grove will be on Clash of Correspondence as soon as we got these next three out the way for Bournemouth, because then the fixtures get better again. So I think then we'll look again at Semenyo, Evan Nilsson, maybe even a defensive one, etc. moving forward. Just one more note on Leicester, because he is in a lot of FPL teams, Suj. Harry Winks obviously didn't start at the weekend, was left out. They played Skippen and Diddy in a double pivot and had Jordan Ayew, who's a really good defensive forward. In front of that, with Buonanotte playing off the right, Mavadivi off the left. So I don't suppose anyone's in a position where they're starting Harry Winks regularly, but you've got Dibbling at close to that value. If he's going to suddenly come out the team, it might be one where, because his ownership is quite decent, his value might start disappearing a bit. So just keep an eye on that.
Yeah, agreed. Cool. Let's talk about Manchester City 3, Fulham 2. Obviously, Fulham gave him a bit of a scare by taking the lead, and then City obviously come back with the most likely of goal scorers in Mateo Kovacic. Haaland owners will be disappointed with nothing. Phil Foden back in the team, but still no sign of De Bruyne yet, although he could be back after the international break.
Correct.
Now. I think the narrative that you will read is Haaland without De Bruyne and Rodri isn't the same Haaland. Do you agree?
So I think the thing to take away really here on Haaland, and I don't want people to misunderstand this as in like sell him, like clearly you can't you? I mean, being genuinely serious. Did you sell Haaland before Wolves and Southampton? There's no way in the world I would do that. One thing not having him, I definitely would not be selling him at this point.
When you say sell him, it's like you're selling him to do something. What is the strategy there? Like, under what circumstances would I sell Erling Haaland?
Well, right, you want to get to like your Saka's, Palmers and stuff. Surely it's not this week.
Yeah, not. There's no player that's got that good a fixture, or that I really need to captain over a Haaland before he plays the two bottom teams in the league. No,
I think I'll sum it up like this. If I was on wildcard this week, he's in. I think.
Yeah. Has to be with those two, assuming he's fit.
I think so. Yeah. And I think those who haven't wildcarded yet, there'll be another kind of cluster doing it now. And then I think there's a period where a lot of people are going to kind of wait for those who still got it might be waiting for sort of like game week 12, 14, something like that later on. I think you'll have called 9 to 11. I can't see many people playing it, to be honest. The takeaway so far has to be, though, there's obviously an impact of Rodri's injury. And we don't have the full information. One of the reasons we don't have the full information, Kevin De Bruyne's not been playing. Right, and that's clear. And it's clear that when Kevin De Bruyne's available, he's obviously going to play a lot of football matches for Man City. So we don't quite know what Pep wants to do yet. What we do know from pre-season and the start of the season was this intent to play these kind of quick 1v1 dribblers in the wide areas. Now, despite the fact I think Haaland probably gets really frustrated with the likes of Doku. The one thing that the likes of Doku really does is makes people panic, right? You don't want to get left 1v1 with him. And Savinho's the same on the other side.
Yeah.
Then the last two games have picked Grealish on the left and Bernardo Silva on the right. Now, both are capable of going on the outside, but not quite in the same way.
No, they're not dribblers. Grealish a little bit, ball carrier more than dribbler, I think
say. You are quite happy to funnel them back inside. So back into traffic, as we'd call it, basically. Now, therefore, if it's funneling back into traffic and it's always coming inside a lot, it's going to make it more difficult for the big man to find space. Now, there's not to say this is it now and it's sticking. Like, I don't think that's the case here at all. But we should note that Rodri's got injured. Those are the two wide men he's picked in the last two league games. And Haaland, certainly at the weekend, I mean, in the Newcastle game, probably should have scored. This one at the weekend, not really. One decent chance in the first half. That's it, really. So I'd take note of that. I still wouldn't stop your captain in game week 8, by the way. For me, he's best captaincy in game week 8 by a distance, and he is in game week 9. Do we agree on that?
Yeah, definitely. There's not even a debate for me, James.
And also, like, how many games does he often blank in a row?
Yeah, not.
Has he ever blanked like 3 in a row? He probably hasn't when he started.
I think he's only blanked 2 in a row 4 times or something. So, yeah, no.
Yeah, I wouldn't be fretting about that. I know Mark Southerns posted a few stats. Haaland has never blanked in three successive Premier League games, so there you go. Um, when City have scored three or more goals, Haaland has only blanked twice when starting, and in one of those he went off at half time. So again, like if you listened to me the weekend, oh, City score three, I'd be like, yep, that's my captain. Don't need to
Well,
think
the thing
twice
is,
about that.
and I saw when Mark tweeted them. My feeling when I saw that was, truth be told, historic stats on the last few games are just irrelevant. He's playing the bottom two teams who've conceded 36 goals between them. Done. Maybe 34, 35, 36 goals between them. Whatever's happened in the past two or three games makes no difference to me. The most prolific Premier League goal scorer we've ever had in terms of goals to games ratio. And he's playing the two bottom teams who have an average of 2.5 goals conceded per game. He could have scored five in the last game. He could have scored zero in the last game. The past is irrelevant in the next two.
Yeah. Um, Also a blank for Phil Foden this weekend. I know, again, I could tell from my stream, a lot of people wanted to take that gamble, and I certainly understand that with the fixtures City have got at the moment. I just feel like they obviously want to push Rico Lewis into these high positions. You got Foden has played a 10 position here. You got Gundogan's played a 10 position here. You got Bernardo Silva wants to come off the flank and go into those areas, and you got Kevin De Bruyne to bring back into that. Like, I absolutely would have wanted to be going probably in game week 9, Saka to Foden or De Bruyne. And if I get that answer with clarity in game week 8, I may well do so. Um, but I don't think I will, you know. I think I'll end up letting that go. Rico Lewis is a really interesting development from Rico Lewis from the weekend. So he started at right back again, ahead of Cole Walker, and played the full game. Now, I think he was targeted from what Fulham did. So Fulham changed it up and played Adama Traore off the left. And I think that was to target him and to make him think twice about where he was going positionally. And it might be that others do that. I think that's the real concern with Rico Lewis. It's not his ability on the ball and what he can do to bring good for Manchester City. He absolutely does. Brings far more to the table than Kyle Walker, for example, in terms of City on the ball. But there will be a concern defensively. Now, it's a couple of games now where I thought they might leave him out because of Anthony Gordon's pace. But remember, he actually played in centre midfield in terms of his starting position at Newcastle. This one, he's obviously started at right back, and it wouldn't have had the personnel to change it with obviously Adama Traore moving to the left. Now, Pep being Pep probably considered that a factor, to be fair. But interestingly, Pep brought on Cole Walker for a Kanji late in the game. And that's just purely for pace reasons, I think.
Yeah,
just
I'm trying
for pace
to think
to protect in that area.
Who do Wolves have in the next game that is a Traore or a Gordon in terms of pace? I mean, Hwang's quick.
He won't start.
Neto's obviously not there anymore. I don't see anyone there like rapid.
No, you're right.
And even Southampton, I don't know who's there that's rapid.
No,
they're going to dominate the ball in both. Well, Southampton maybe not so much, but they're going to dominate the ball with Wolves.
Absolutely right. I mean, listen, if you're comparing via Traore, then no one's particularly rapid, right? But yes, when you look on paper over the next games, I would say of the next three, I think there's a good chance Lewis keeps playing. I look at Brighton and 11 and think, would Pep want him playing against Mitoma? And I think, oh, that's questionable. But actually, it's these upcoming ones you'd be bothered about the most. Problem, by the way, still is, though, City will concede sloppy goals against anyone. And Rodri not being there is not going to help this, by the way.
Agreed.
So, if people are on Lewis, I think they're in a good position. He's under consideration for me. Kind of, you nailed it on the head there. I think over the next few, he'll play regularly enough, and there's good fixtures there. I can kind of pick him as my fourth defender as well. But if I'm getting hold of him over these next two, I'm going to want to play him. And I've probably got benching headaches as it stands anyway. So I'm probably going to let it go.
You're like me with Trent, Gabriel, and Porro. And then Rico Lewis is my fourth defender, but I will be playing for him.
I mean, as a Porro owner, and I've no intention to sell Pedro, especially now we're getting into a better run of fixtures on paper. I'm not benching Pedro in any of those next four.
No.
So
you're playing four at the back. Yeah.
If I got him in, yeah.
Got it, yeah. My intention is to.
I wouldn't look Gabriel against Liverpool and go bench him. I could certainly maybe make the case, and I think you probably would pick Lewis at home to Southampton rather than Trent at Arsenal.
Yep. But Trent's attacking returns.
Oh,
It's always that in the back of your mind.
Like, he returned at the Emirates in the FA Cup last year and at the Etihad in the Premier League, right? So, yeah, anytime. Just note on Edison, he's on 3 yellow cards already.
Time wasting at the weekend is what he picked one up for. Yeah.
I just can't have him as a fantasy asset. Sorry, kids.
We might have to start.
Say it all year, every year.
We might start having to do card watch soon because I know Chelsea got a couple of players suspended now, haven't they?
On Kovacic.
Yeah.
Right. He's obviously got a few returns since Rodri's been injured. He's obviously scored twice at the weekend. It was his blocked shot that led to John Stones' equaliser against Arsenal a couple of weeks ago as well. The second goal particularly, he's scored. It's the type of goal that Rodri would have scored last season. I'm not suggesting anyone goes and buys Mateo Kovacic. Please don't. But he's now ending up in the position where Rodri took advantage of quite a lot last year. He is not Rodri, and City are going to be vulnerable in upcoming games. I think there's a shock Man City result coming up soon. I.e. to get beat and no one to be expecting it. I think they're very vulnerable at the moment. Traore could have had a hat-trick the weekend. And I realise that's an element of pace that like people can't deal with. But actually, one of the chances he had was just Fulham quickly countering on them and breaking through lines, and it's Traore ends up with the chance that he puts over in the first half. They're vulnerable, and I'd be concerned about them at the moment. Fulham,
no
Lewis
Smith
James is
Rowe.
on COTC on Thursday.
I think that's tactical, though, isn't it? Really,
Yeah,
where he's tried to almost
think,
go to 5 at the back style with Iwobi as a wing back. Maybe.
Yeah, there's that. So Iwobi, yes, played a kind of a hybrid role. There's possibly something to note, therefore, about maybe sort of like when Fulham go to Tottenham around about game week 13, that it's the sort of one, maybe Smith Rowe might get left out again. But I'm fairly certain for those who own, there's some good fixtures coming up. And I'm pretty sure Lewis will say that, yeah, don't worry, Smith Rowe will be back in the team at the weekend. Another attacking return for Jimenez.
Yes. But also a goal for Muniz off the bench. And that's two now he's got off the bench, isn't it? So Muniz coming off the bench.
What, you including that assist off his arse
was it an assist?
Off his bum, yeah.
2 attacking returns. He's returned off the bench, right? So I don't think Muniz is completely off the table in terms of getting back in the team. It wouldn't surprise me if Muniz does start a game or two.
No, he won't drop Jimenez. Well, while Jimenez is on a streak, he won't drop him.
Yeah?
But yeah, absolutely certain of that. And I'm pretty certain Lewis will say the same. Marcus Hill spoke really highly about Jimenez on Friday in his press conference as well. It's a great assist for obviously Andreas Pereira's goal. Good run of fixtures here for Fulham coming up. So I think like if you'd held through this weekend, Smith Rowe, Robinson, you'd be pretty happy at that. Some good fixtures coming up. Now, Villa now probably without Ezri Konsa next. Yeah, I'd be holding on.
West Ham 4, Ipswich 1. West Ham the only team to get more big chances at the weekend, I think, than Brentford. We got 9 big chances at the weekend, James. XG for West Ham was nosebleed numbers of like 3.79. When do we ever get XGs like that?
I heard a rumour in the week that Antonio was tired. Can you confirm or not?
Listen. If you look at that, and if anybody has a question of, Antonio's got 4 attacking returns, he got no assists at the weekend, James.
No.
He got 0 assists at the weekend.
It's one of the most bizarre returns. Listen.
How has he got 3 assists, 3 fantasy assists, but actually in real football terms, they might give him the one for Paqueta, but that was just deflected off his foot. He had no intention of that whatsoever. That was Bowen's assist.
Yeah, the first one is obviously his header. He should score. Hits the bar. Kudo scores.
Good effort. It wasn't a bad effort.
On the third one, that's a proper fluky. I realise nearly no one's got him. It's a proper fluky
shot.
But is it even a shot?
Safe shot that goes 40 yards out, 50 yards out, and then Bowen does the rest.
I think he's just trying to touch it.
He got no assists.
I think he's trying to touch it past the keeper. The ball goes back like 40 yards. And Bowen picks it up and runs with it and scores. And that counts as an assist from a blocked shot.
I saw the tweet from official FPL saying, we have determined that it was a blocked shot from Antonio, so we're giving it the assist.
All right. No, I mean, no one cares. And the fourth one, I mean, it barely comes off him, doesn't it?
Yeah, the first time I saw it, I didn't realise he touched it, and I thought to myself that outside of the boot ball through, like threaded through 3 or 4 players from Bowen, was sexy as hell. And then when I saw it touch them, I was like, okay, fine, but still, that's Bowen's beautiful ball through more than anybody else. It's incredible. He didn't get any assists in that game, is what I'm saying. None whatsoever.
Bowen's XGI massive at the weekend. So was Paquetá's. So was Kudos. Big numbers here. What was your XG in the game? So
3.96.
Yeah, very good. 23 shots.
Yeah, 9 big chances.
Okay. If I don't suppose people want to invest in West Ham now at this moment ahead of the Planet FPL derby. I know there's a few that wanted to gamble Bowen last week. If people want to go and get a West Ham attacker now, if that's what they decide, Suj, which one?
Bowen.
Still Bowen, yeah.
Bowen all day long. Yeah, he's looking good. When you have a fixture where your front 4 all score, you're happy, right? That's what you want. All of them manage to get on the score sheet. So confidence-wise, that will really help.
Yeah,
but Bowen is the standout.
Yeah, I would pay the extra. He's the one that's on radar for me. Nothing defensively I'd want to look at the moment, not with upcoming fixtures. Do you think Areola should have saved the goal? If we're being critical?
Probably.
Feels like it. Yeah.
Probably. I mean, look, he hit it hard, the lap, and it kind of bounced a bit. I just love Paqueta's defending. Do you know, it reminded me of, outside car dealerships, you get those inflatable guys with those big floppy arms. You need to come on YouTube, listeners, to watch this. The way that he just kind of waved his arms in the air and his body was like an inflatable pop-up kind of man.
I know the one.
It was ridiculous. That was exactly how he defended it. Like his body was going in all sorts of weird positions that gave Delap so much space to hit it. We shouldn't have conceded a goal like that. It was an individual mistake that led to a goal from Lucas Paqueta again.
Taking the pressure off the Lopetegui Monas, though, right? That result.
Yeah.
Good performance,
sure.
Good victory, right?
Yeah. And past the first 20 minutes, Ipswich didn't offer much, to be honest with you. They were a pretty compliant opponent, okay. I would say.
What do we make of
still decent.
Delap?
Yeah, he's still decent. He's lively, he's strong, he's physical. I really like him as a striker. I think he's decent. 2 of the next 3, Everton, Leicester. Like if you're in that basement
and
level,
Brentford away is fine as well for an
it
attacking
is.
player.
I mean, they've just conceded three to Wolves, so you can't say Brentford much shakes defensively. Yeah, he's fine at that price. Like if I was looking in and around 5.5, 5.6, Delap would be the one. I don't like Calvert-Lewin as a pick. I think it's still too early for the Wolves guys. There's nothing else there. I'd go Delap.
I think buying him, so the players at that kind of value, was he 5.60 Delap? So that, Vardy, Calvert-Lewin, but like Chris Wood is a bit above that now.
6'1", 6'2", 6'2".
I'd possibly prefer. I mean, Wood versus Delap, if the money's not an issue there for people.
It's 8 points over the season difference only between them.
I think Wood, I don't know the exact statistic, forgive me, but I think he might be in the top 5 or so for goals scored since Nuno took over.
Okay.
Like consistency is good, right? Did help he got a hat-trick in one of Nuno's first games at St. James's Park. I'd probably prefer Wood, and I think the reason for that's a biased opinion, is I think with Delap as well, it's thinking about the bad outcome here and considering. I think Delap, if people really want to go and buy it for 3 games and chain that onto something else, I think that's fine because of the next 3, Everton, Brentford, Leicester, Leicester at home as well. Perfectly reasonable. But if he does bad in them, you're going to want to move it. So I think if you buy, that's fine, but you need to buy with the intention to sell, I think, after the Leicester game in game week 10. And if you get to that point afterwards and he's done really well and you go, yeah, that's my consistent animal, I'm fine with that, then great. You're in that privileged position. You can look at something different. I think he's a dip in for a short term because of the fixtures. If you're looking at something that's a longer term, I'd stay away at the moment. And I'd wait a bit longer for, I think, Wolves, actually. What I would say about him, though, the rest behind him aren't really contributing at the moment. So that does give him the opportunity to be a real talisman. It's not like, say, the West Ham question we're saying, is it still Bowen? We're agreeing and saying yes. if you're buying an Ipswich attacker, there isn't a doubt which
There's
one
no
at the
even
moment.
debate.
So
No.
that does make him really interesting.
Yeah, agree
You
with you on
wouldn't be
that.
looking at the rest. I think there was defensive stuff there that was a little bit alarming. Interestingly, for those who went Ben Johnson in pre-season and may have never dealt with the problem, Axel Twanzebe missed out the weekend with a hand injury. He's had surgery. Kieran McKenna suggested he'd miss the next few. Now, do you know what? It might have just landed where there's a couple of games here you might want to use Ben Johnson. But how did he play, Suj?
Average, not great, but he's coming up against a very tricky opponent in Kudus. Kudus gives everybody nightmares. He's probably one of the most awkward dribblers. He completes more dribbles than anyone else. Yet every time he dribbles, looks like he's going to lose the ball. But he's physically stronger than Ben Johnson. It wasn't a good matchup for him. Let's be honest.
There'll be a challenge for Johnson next time in Neilman and Dyer.
No
Similarities
doubt.
there. So,
segue. Everton 0, Newcastle 0.
Anthony Gordon missed the penalty next game. Villa versus United.
Exactly. I was looking at XG and it's
game.
like 0.67 versus 2 for Newcastle. You got to remember they missed the penalty. Look, there was 14 shots amassed for Newcastle for a total of 1 XG. Not great for them.
Yeah, but that's including Gordon's penalty, which is obviously
2.
really high, right?
Including the penalties 2.
Oh, okay, fine.
Yeah.
Missed opportunity really for Newcastle. I think there was plenty of rumours about Mikalenko and Brentford missing out, which obviously proved to be correct. And then I think then you're looking at almost any team in this league and targeting victory against Everton. And listen, Gordon scores a penalty and they probably win it. It's fine. He also missed a really good chance in the second half, Anthony Gordon. He did feel... Was you watching the game live?
No.
So I was watching it and I have to say I thought he'd miss. It just felt like that. The whole going back to Goodison, Pickford's quite decent. I felt like he'd miss. I don't think it didn't help him that he'd had one the previous week. I don't know if it was, do I want to go the same way? Is that a bit obvious? And he's gone for what felt like a probably a less comfortable penalty for him. And Pickford's got it right. So Pickford nearly dived past it, didn't he? Big hole for Pickford owners.
Huge.
And I would imagine that there are lots of people who have wildcarded over the last week or so and binned Jordan Pickford, and I would understand that reasoning. And you know what's coming now.
His run of fixtures is decent. Jordan Pickford.
Brentford. By the way, we're not sure on the prognosis yet, but I kind of gathered from Sean Dyche's comments on Saturday that it's probably not that bad. We don't know yet. Mikalenko's also minor, so look, if they're back, Brentford is so key to them defensively. It's good for them psychologically that they got through this one, didn't concede without him. I actually thought Michael Keane played all right, actually. But Brentford is definitely a difference maker for them. So, yeah, with what's coming up, I'd keep an eye on Everton defence. There will be some surprising clean sheets. I'm very confident that they'll get themselves away from danger and have some decent results.
I agree with you.
But I would not want one of these attacking players.
No. Even Dwight McNeil.
No, I think like Dwight McNeil's creativity numbers, we talked about it last week, is like really good. He could have had something again at the weekend. I just don't really want to look at an Everton attacker in my team, frankly. And Calvert-Lewin, unfortunately, has not got the returns that people would have gambled and would have hoped for. They're in a similar position to me and Vardy, and I think you'd be looking at moving it. The bigger problem with Everton in, say, Calvert-Lewin versus Vardy is I can look at Vardy's fixtures and go, yeah, next 3 is okay, and then I definitely want to sell. Calvert-Lewin's, you're looking up to what? Game week 15? And going, this is all right. Basically up to the Merseyside derby in game week 15. So it can become one where you'll get stuck for a while. The good news is it's probably not your biggest problem because in any fixture they might do fine. And I think McNeil particularly is perfectly reasonable if people have picked up on it. I'm just saying for me, it's of no interest at this moment. And neither particularly are Newcastle with what's around the corner. We think Isak and Wilson might both be back fit for game week 8. I would love to get a fully fit Alexander Isak in game week 8 and captain him. But I don't think that's going to be on the table. That's a risk I cannot take.
I don't think you'd want to buy him. Like, look what happened. He had the broken toe injury, came off and then had to come off after half a game. And one of these rules, never buy a player straight away when he's back from injury. is not really. It depends on the injury and it depends on it. But with Isak, I don't think I'd want to take that
Yeah,
risk.
it's genuinely a good rule of thumb, which is why when I look at Chelsea away, Arsenal at home, Forest away, yeah, Tottenham go to Manchester City in game week 12, and then West Ham go to Newcastle. Yeah, it might be something like Solanke to Isak in game week 12 for me.
Yeah, a bit further down the road. Cool, cool. Sunday games, Aston Villa, Man United, definitely skippable. Neither of them, I mean, they barely managed to get to half an XG each. I would say that my two things when I watch this, Morgan Rogers as a ball carrier is really good. Like when he picks the ball up and driving runs, it just opens his legs up. I love it. His final ball was a bit ropey yesterday. He didn't quite make it through, but I love it. And I think we should really give a shout out to Johnny Evans, because you can frown as much as you want. He was prime Vidic yesterday. Like, I thought he was excellent.
Steady.
Now, look, in the context of Johnny Evans, right? When you look at it and you're a Man United fan and you're looking at Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans as your two centre backs with De Ligt and Martinez on the bench, you can be critical. But I thought he had a great game considering everything. Yeah, I thought he was really good.
Look, I wasn't watching the game.
For a 300-year-old guy, I mean, he's played. They said on comms his 18th Premier League season.
Hall of Fame. There you go. Such
Maybe not.
It is remarkable for a player who was brought in on essentially a 1-month rolling contract originally to kind of help out, that he's now fast forward and playing. I wasn't paying the game 100% attention because I had beers in my hand and was obviously in the Amex already watching the game with Brad and my dad and Sam during the second half. But to be fair, me and Brad sat there and said that like 20 minutes ago. Like Johnny Evans man of match here from what I've watched. Really good. It did feel like one. I think most people felt like this. When you saw the team and saw Martinez and De Ligt were on the bench, it was like, oh my God, if this goes wrong, we really are at curtains here. But we'd have 100%. To give praise and credit here and say they defended well, largely. It's kind of the one real big chance for Philogene Biddance at the end, which Dallo half turns out of and blocks. Lost Harry Maguire during the game. Lost Matsurawi during the game for injuries as well. And they coped with it. And they did all right. And, you know, we've bashed United. But we have to give a little bit of praise for that. I want to shout out one of our patrons, FPL Odyssey, Alex, who will definitely be telling me, by the way, go and buy Matthias Cunha in a couple of weeks. He's been on him all season, I think. This is quite interesting what he tweeted. He's a United fan as well. He listed kind of United's 8 worst defeats in the Premier League under Ten Hag. So 4-0 at Brentford, we all remember. 6-3 at City. Haaland and Foden hat-trick. 7-0 at Liverpool. 3-0 at home to City. 3-0 at home to Bournemouth last season. The 4-0 at Palace. Last, it could have been more than 4. And the 2 3-0s so far this season against Liverpool and Tottenham. And Alex said, in the 8 games that immediately followed those, they've conceded 3 goals. And that includes games against Liverpool twice, Arsenal, and Aston Villa. Is there a response here when Manchester United actually have a real big slap in that in the next game just shut the shit down? Because that looked like that yesterday.
Yeah, but if you wanted to, it doesn't change that. Like if your default is how are we going to shut the shit down? Let's get out Maguire and Evans. Doesn't make logical sense.
But it
worked.
Experience. If you look at how Evans defended Watkins, some good analysis. I think Stephen Warnock did it last night in terms of keeping his distance from Watkins. He never got too close that Watkins could run off the shoulder of him. There were times when you look at it positionally, by the way, and he goes way too deep. And if Villa had runners from deeper, they'd have been in. But Villa didn't have runners from deeper. So from a strategic point of view, it worked. And there'll be probably people watching that going, did we play Johnny Evans in the next game? I don't think that's necessarily a scenario, but it was. You'd have to praise Ten Hag for the boldness of that team selection, actually. I think Marcus Rashford was a lucky boy because they're both yellow cards.
Yep.
Just individually, he was a lucky boy. I thought he played all right again. I saw United's first half in Porto, and he played quite well in the first half there. I've been earmarking this United Brentford fixture for a while as one that I wanted to target. And United do have good fixtures coming up now. Their run of fixtures, basically going up till they go to the Emirates in game week 14, is pretty good. Yeah, it's got a Chelsea home game in there, but I think for the offensive guys particularly, it looks good. There's a couple of problems. One, they've only scored 5 league goals in 7 games, but I also think that's not going to last. United will put some goals on the
We've seen
board
that
'cause
XG is up there.
I think they're the biggest underperformers so far. They must be biggest underperformers on XG so far. The one that a lot of us would like to go and punt, I think, is Garnacho. The biggest problem with Garnacho is, will he start? That's the best fixture in the immediate of the next three is Brentford at home. So it's the one you really want in front of you. What we've already seen so far this season is after Argentina duty, there's no guarantee that it will start. They are 1 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday night / Wednesday morning. We know now that the players will get back in plenty of time, but we've just seen historically that Ten Hag, over the last few, has not started him. He's been resting players. Him and Rashford both played 45 minutes in Porto. Those minutes will get managed against Brentford, you'd think, even if he does start. So I think it's a let it go, unfortunately. Therefore, by default, the one I'm probably looking at is Bruno, because I don't, despite what I said, I don't really want to go down the Marcus Rashford route. But the plan for me had probably been off at this point for Jota to Fernandes, maybe. And I've already said I might end up captaining Jota. And when I look at that, I think Jota owns Chelsea, Fernandes at home to Brentford. Yeah, Haaland owners are like, James, and you're ranked where right now? Like, what do you consider there? Would you move Jota to Fernandes this week?
No,
No, it's a no, isn't it?
no. If I had a problem, and I think I'd go to Bruno if I had an injury and I fancied like taking something punty, but no. I'd rather go to an Arsenal midfielder or a Bowen or just get that done. Or if you don't already own him, Bomo, go there. There's other options.
They are also.
I wouldn't sell Bruno though.
That's what I was going to say. They're in the category of like the Everton players now, though. So if you're like Slippers and others who are still on Bruno Fernandes and was hoping that red card last week was going to give you the excuse and obviously got overturned, you haven't got to this point of selling him now, are you?
Yeah, no.
But how long do you leave it?
You cross your fingers and hope that an injury makes your decision.
Honestly, if I had him in, I'd leave him in at the moment. And I know people would look at outcomes.
I'm with you.
I bet you the return is there soon. And
Yeah.
I think that Brentford game could be particularly good for him, actually.
Chelsea won. Nottingham Forest won, James, which quite a surprise. Having said that, if you look at the stats, I mean, we were talking about Forest last week having an XGC of less than 1 per game. It's 0.7 something, wasn't it? And Chelsea managed to rock up 2.4. So they had the chances to win the game. They just didn't take them in the end. No one expected them to go batshit, as you'd say, though, because Forest are good defensively. Chelsea will feel disappointed. They should have finished their chances and won it, but they didn't.
Well, I think Chelsea put an XG on the board, I think, that was bigger than what Forest had conceded in their 3 away games before
season.
this. And that included going to Liverpool and Brighton, right? So
yeah.
that said, at the same time, you look at the big chances. 4 for Forest, 3 for Chelsea, right?
Yep.
So when Forest did have a chance, it was a big chance. Firstly, on Forest, one of the things I'll be doing this week is getting on my planner and definitely changing my ranking of Nottingham Forest and making that a stronger opponent. I said this last week about it beginning to feel like Nuno's Wolves, and you didn't really want players against Nuno's Wolves. 1-0, 2-0, that sort of thing. Yeah, Nuno's doing really well at the moment, and Mark Sutherns will be on COTC tomorrow, so he'll tell us more. Morgan Gibbs-White obviously went off injured, doubt moving forward. Chris Wood is on radar for me, Suj. Fixtures over the next
how
few.
can he not be? I mean, look
Palace,
at his
Leicester, West Ham,
performance. How can he not be? Yeah, he's just been so consistent.
But it's another one. Then there's tougher ones, right? So I feel like, I'll give an example. So say like Solanke, I mentioned about him playing at City in game week 12. And it all might be sort of moved to Isak at a similar price, maybe, but if he's back fit at that point. So if you looked at like a Chris Wood and you look at Arsenal away, okay, can deal with it for 1 week. But then it's City away a couple of after that as well. Like, do you want to look at both? 2 and 3. So again, I feel like Wood also falls into the same category as Delap. He's like, fine, you want to go there, but you're thinking about maybe moving that on. I
What I
think.
like about Wood is, I mean, all 4 goals he scored were been in draws. He's either picked up 2 or 3 BPS in all of them as well. And we've seen that with strikers where if they score, and none of those games went off. Brighton 2-2 was the highest scoring, but the others are all 1-1s. So
This is what Forest games are going to be like. So if he scores, yeah, there's
he's
a
on
good
the
chance he's getting an
BPS.
8 or a 9. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
and he has so far. So pretty decent from Chris Wood at that price, 6.2. I mean, I think he had a rise yesterday, which is unsurprising. I'm sure he was 6-1 before the weekend started. I, I mean, when you've got Haaland, Watkins, and Solanke, there's just no room for him at the moment for me. But if I was going to go there, Watkins would be the one that I would
There's
sacrifice.
room for me. I'll just go Vardy to there now.
Yeah, that's a good shout. It's a good
I
shout. And if you got
might.
the money, I
Yeah,
wouldn't
but
blame
look
you.
who Vardy's playing next, man.
Cole Palmer, tell me, like, okay, Liverpool, Newcastle, Man United, Arsenal was 4 of the net. I don't feel pressure to get him. I think he'll
No, that's
return in.
fine.
I think he'll return in all of them, but I don't feel like forcing the issue.
If you think he'd return in all of them, I'll probably be bringing him in, Suj. Have you seen the double save and the touch he has before it?
He's,
Oh, pawn that, mate. Oh my God. I was thinking, was it Milenkovic? It just turned him inside out. Just a little flick round the corner and round the other way, and then the 2 shots. Well saved by Sells. Great.
we already know the outstanding ability of him now, but he just keeps getting better. I feel like every week he's still surprising me with how good he actually is at this football thing.
Yeah. Who I thought should have won Player of the Year last year, right? It's him.
Yeah, I was in agreement, and that's why I thought he should have started more for England in the summer.
Yeah, he's going to win it this year, I think. Unless like an Arsenal win the league and have a proper definitive standout like Saka, yeah, fine, it could be. But I think he should have won Player of the Year last year. I think he's probably the most informed player in the league in terms of remove fantasy, just how you're playing at the moment and stuff. Yeah, phenomenal. Ironically, his assist is just a basic pass to a wide man, but he could have had
But
more in
the
this.
but in those situations, when does he ever play a bad pass? Like the weight of pass and the decision making, we've all got players like you've got a Timo Werner, right, who gets in those kind of positions and just fluffs his lines
Don't
or
start me off.
no. But I mean, how many players are there? And we shouldn't. That's probably a bad comparison. There's so many, even a Bruno Fernandes, and they fluff that final pass. Palmer's weight of pass and decision making every single time just seems right.
Yeah, he's an outstanding player. I think it's clear at the moment if you wanted to invest in Chelsea, Palmer, Jackson, fine. But I don't think you are investing now with what's about to arrive. It is Liverpool away, Newcastle at home, I think is fine. United away is also fine. Those two particularly are fine for Palmer. Arsenal at home afterwards as well. Then there's a good swing for Chelsea, sort of game week 12 onwards, that lasts for a really prolonged period into 2025. And I certainly would not want to be going into game week 12 without Cole Palmer. So you need some thought process. You definitely don't need to be scraping your team apart to get there. But I would absolutely want him from that run from game week 12 onwards, definitively. As said, I'd probably captain him as it stands as a non-Haaland owner in game week 9 home to Newcastle. I think that's fine. But most people won't be investing in Chelsea this week. That's obvious. And part of the reason for mentioning, obviously, Jota as a potential captaincy option is no Fofana, no Cucurella in
5
game
yellows
week
each.
8. 5 yellows already. I mean, I know people said, increase the threshold. But quite frankly, if you get 5 yellow cards
No, 5 in 7 games.
yeah, you deserve
to be suspended.
Exactly. You deserve a suspension.
Yeah.
Don't get that many bookings that quickly. So I would imagine, trying to preempt here, what did Chelsea do at Liverpool instead? So Gusto will obviously play again. Levi Colwell will play again. I'd imagine they probably bring in Tosin Adarabioyo and probably play Renato Vega at left back. He's a decent player. I question some of his movement. We saw him obviously playing midfield against Bournemouth. He'd probably play at left back rather than, I think, them shoving Colwell to left back and bringing in Adarabioyo and Disasai in, because if that's the case, then I actually genuinely would want to captain Jota. And it's little things like this is why I won't rule that out at the moment, actually. I think Liverpool could have a good day, actually, against that Chelsea potential backline. It's a bad game to get a couple of suspensions for, isn't it? Liverpool,
Isn't it just? Yeah.
So there's a few reasons not to invest in Chelsea. I think just finally on Forest as well. Defensively, you mentioned Milenkovic. He's obviously got the assist here for Chris Wood. Is that the one you'd want to go to if going defensively?
At 4.5, yeah. I think he's the best 4.5 around.
I think it's very understandable to want to go and look at a Forest defensively. They feel at the moment like the one that will be strongest of, let's say, and I mean this with all due respect, expected bottom 10
Bottom half
teams
yeah.
at the moment. And Forest may well push for better as this season progresses. What you'd have to factor in your mind is, though, if you go for a Milenkovic, it's going to be the same thing. Look at that run from game week 12. There's games there you definitely won't want to start him. So you could get it in as a rotation, look at it. But if you're just getting it in as I'm going to start this every week, like over the next couple, that's fine. But looking beyond, you're not going to like that.
No. Right, listeners, if you excuse me for the next 30 seconds while I go and make some microwave popcorn and then come back so we can do the last game. Brighton 3, Tottenham 2. Honestly, James, I watched this and at half-time, I didn't think I should bother with the second half because you were that good in the first half that it was...
Cheers, boss. Thanks.
I just...
Feel better now.
No, this is not me rubbing it. This is genuinely, you were that good. I was like, Baleba, losing the ball in midfield and then you turning it over and getting at them, the creativity and the chances. It was comfy. And I didn't see the second half at all because you were that good. Here's the thing, right? You talk about why you lost and whatever else. Ange's not going to let you try and make that mistake again. But it really did smack of it being too comfortable and too easy and switching off. Not because you were rubbish. It just was it was absolutely a mentality thing.
No, we were shit second half. Let's
no,
not paint that
not because you're not capable, not because you're a bad football team. It was a mentality issue, not a capability issue. And then it really just felt like a deck of cards that just collapsed in a really bizarre way.
I can only tell you at first half, at half time, there was a few things I was questioning. It's weird in hindsight. Half time, I'm asking myself a few things. So I've just watched United at Villa and they've done all right defensively. And I've just watched what we've just done to Brighton in that first half, what we've done at Old Trafford the previous week. And I'm actually thinking, are we better than I think we are? I'm beginning to ask myself that question. Also, at the same time, thinking, how shit have Brighton been? Same thing.
Considering how many they conceded last week and then how many they conceded in the first half again, I'm like, what's that? Six goals to nothing in 1.5 games of football.
For me, they were so passive off the ball. What I mean by that is like you can be passive and kind of in a low block, but if you're going to be passive in a low block, that's fine. You're going to be passive and play on the halfway line, you're going to die. I mean, we should have scored after 15 seconds. And the game felt, I could only tell you exactly what you said. At half time, the game felt won and it felt easy. And I couldn't believe that. I genuinely at half time was in kind of no doubt that we'd go and win the game. So I also recognized to reflect, people reference back to the red card of Bruno Fernandes last week. Well, yeah, maybe Tottenham would have collapsed in the second half. Who knows? It certainly didn't feel that way. Brighton couldn't cope with a few things in the first. I think particularly Kulusevski was killing them in the right-hand half space and just could not deal with that at all. And in the passing behind for Johnson was on all the time. Well, that said, in that first half, Brighton still had some good moments, particularly the Welbeck miss from the Mitoma cross. And as much as Brighton were bad in the first half, like they were a lot better. Brighton were much better in the second half than Tottenham were better in the first half. Does that make sense? Brighton deserved to win the game. No one's questioning that.
Yep.
The first goal caused... I've gone in the space. I'm behind the goal where all the goals were. The first goal caused alarm straight away. It was the manner of it. So, Mitoma down the far side again. Van der Ven tries to get on the end of it. He gets a little flick on it. Udogie takes a hack at it. It's an ugly goal to concede. So it's not like you've just conceded. You've just conceded a goal that looks like you're all panicking at the back, right? And it shifted the mentality instantly. And I don't think Tottenham could get out of it. I think this happens. We do this as fans. I've just said, I thought at half time we'd won basically because the game felt that easy. And I think that's what happened to the players. I think they had a mentality issue went on there. And there's little things like after the equaliser, there was a moment where Romero went to challenge Welbeck on the halfway line, and Welbeck set up a chance for Mitoma, which Van der Ven blocked, and then they scored like the winning goal like a minute or two after that. That Romero does one of two things there because he's aggressive. He either wins the ball or he fouls the opponent. Did neither. And they're off and they're running at us and we're in trouble. Bentancur obviously should deal better with the Minter assist for the winning goal for Danny Welbeck. But I'm behind the goal. And I'm telling you, I was shouting, see it out, Rod. I didn't think Minter was going to get there. So it's just things there where it's like all of us just got a bit too relaxed, I think.
Yep.
In the moment. And then suddenly you've blinked and it's 2-2 and it becomes irreversible. And to be honest, the bigger pain for me wasn't actually those 20 minutes where we conceded the goals. It's then the 20 minutes afterwards where Brighton have then gone, all right, what you got? And it was poor.
Yeah. It did feel, when it got to that, when they'd gone 3-2 up, I was like, right, in a strange way, I felt you were going to come back because you have previously and you've got the firepower.
I still thought we could win the game at 3-2 down.
I agree, but they suddenly had something to fight for where I thought, actually, yeah, they might. It's a very different mentality when you're in that position. And so it didn't surprise me in the end that they were able to see it out. Bad day at the office. From a fantasy point of view, I mean, no one's looking at Brighton defensively, I'd like to think, because they're just shipping far too many goals.
Actually, interestingly, Adam Webster went off injured quite early in the game. Obviously, Julio played. Look, Brighton are another one. There's a really good run of change of fixtures coming up roundabouts game with 12. But yes, I agree. You're probably not looking at it defensively. I mean, Verbruggen should save Madison's shot. That's unquestionable. So Estupiñán made a big change to the game when he come on at left back because Kadioglu had not. It's a weird one. Like if you look at the chance Johnson missed just before half time, Johnson like rushes Kadioglu off physically. And you know what I say a lot about Johnson. Yeah, Estupiñán weren't letting any of that happen. So Estupiñán might get a run now, and he'll be one when the fixtures change. You think, yeah, next few includes a trip to St James's, a trip to Anfield, and Man City at home. So no, I don't think you are investing in any Brighton at this moment. No.
But I thought Mitoma did look good. He was involved in everything. He was the one that they were looking to find and feed and so on.
There's definitely someone who should buy Mitoma. Daniel Levy. Honestly,
I knew that was coming.
Go and
I knew that was coming.
Whatever they want. I say this literally every single time we play them. I'm in awe of him. I think in the first half, such a good fit for Tottenham.
I'm biased with your opinion on it, but whenever I look at it, I'm like, take these two teams, swap Werner and Mitoma, and shit, you're going to win the game about 4-0.
Yeah, honestly, we win the game easy.
5-0. I was like, swap those two players around, and it's a joke how much of a difference
the chance that Mitoma, I don't want to dig Timo out because I like him, but he's not good enough, right? But Timo gets the ball on the left-hand side. This is in the first half. I think at 1-0, maybe might have been 2-0 at that point. And there's space to go into and he falls over himself. Brighton counter-attack and Mitoma's putting one in with the outside of his foot and Welbeck's got like a clear one-on-one chance. You're like, oh my God, the difference here. Mitoma he's a player who I almost become a bit transfixed with him watching them. Maybe because I've got a vested interest where I'm like, yeah, I know that player would be perfect for me. He is one of them you watch live and he is much better than you think he is. He's in control of what he's doing all the time. And he has little phases in games, I think, sometimes where he's quiet for 10 minutes. You think, oh, he's not in it. But it doesn't bother him because when you get the ball to him, he's so dangerous. And that's not to speak up for him as a fantasy asset for me, in my opinion, anyway, at all at the moment. I'm just talking about as a footballer. Like, ask them what they want and pay them extra is my take on buying Mitoma. Brilliant footballer. I think on Brighton assets for FPL, even offensively, it's become quite blurred. So João Pedro, we don't really know what the injury status is. And Jorginho Rutter was obviously really good. Minter come back in the team, I suggest he'll probably get more minutes. I think the fact that they had 4 aggressive attacking players, I think was really unsettling for Tottenham when we came under pressure in the second half. But João Pedro will go back in this team somewhere. But Rutter's playing well. Welbeck's playing well. Minter had a big impact on the game yesterday. So I feel like when it comes round, it will be difficult to call in terms of who you want the minutes. Because part of me getting Vardy was always to set it up and go, well, I'll have Vardy for this period and that's going to go to João Pedro when the timing's right. That was kind of my plan. But watching them yesterday, you think good players they are, and they're going to have to share some minutes around. That's
Yeah.
the only thing. If Pedro's out for a prolonged period, I think Rutter should be considered by people, but not with these fixtures in the immediate. For Tottenham, another goal for Brennan. Really well taken. I think it's the sort of one, if he wasn't full of confidence at the moment, because it's come to him on his left foot, if he was short on confidence, he'd do something different. Because he's flying on confidence, like, yep, first time, left foot, no problem, and scores, which was really nicely assisted through Solanke. And the majority of the good moments we had in the first half had Dom involved somewhere, whether it was him linking, playing in behind, pulling people out of position. In the second half, just couldn't get him on the ball. I think he had 5 touches in the second half. 4 of them were from kickoff.
Yeah, I heard that stat.
But that's not his fault.
No, it's the team.
What I
to
want
provide for him.
sometimes
If you've
when I
got a
watch
number
Tottenham,
9, you want to service him.
Yeah, look, it's absolutely fine to have a principle of how you want to play and stick to that. I think that's fine. But Tottenham will have joy by just dinking a ball into Romero, into Solanke, just a little dink ball now and again, just to make people think, oh, they're mixing it up. They're doing something different. And Tottenham don't do that enough. So no concerns on Solanke because there'll be different games, different times. He'll get chances. That's still my preference. There will be people want to target Tottenham attackers with the next 4 fixtures, 3 at home and a trip to Palace. If you want one and you've got none, just forgetting what you're selling, Solanke is still the preference.
I would agree with you on
of
that.
the midfielders. It
Johnson.
is Johnson. He's the one on the streak. So go with it. Madison's underlines are good. I think that's well documented. Kulusevski was the one on the eye in the first half yesterday. He was like, oh my God, the positions he's getting into here is so dangerous. But it would be Johnson. Defensively, probably not investing. I think Mickey van der Ven is in a category of players like, the Milenkovic and stuff like that can be considered. He had a very difficult second half yesterday. But the preference would still be with Pedro. I think he's 5th for expected goal involvement for defenders so far this season, which is perfectly reasonable at what his value is. I even held him through, to be honest, expecting very little for United and Brighton away to then bin him now ahead of what's really is 4 good fixtures on paper. So Pedro's staying for me. And if I was on wildcard, well. if I was on wildcard now, I'd still be considering him, I think.
I think he frustrates a little bit, Pedro. But what you don't realise is he ticks along. He's one of those players where you're waiting for something explosive. Never quite. It can happen, but he does. Whilst he's not exploding, he does tick along still. I've got no intention of selling him again for similar reasons. Where I was talking about, like, where are you going to go? You're trying to drop down. There's not that much there. Kanate, you'd save 500,000. Okay, but then beyond that, where are you going really? Unless you're going down to a Mikalenko at 4.3 or Vandenberg at 4 million just to find money. Doesn't do it for me. I'm going to hold him through for now.
Yeah, same for me. He'd only be moved. He's gone away on national duty with Spain, so it'd only be if there's an injury problem. No consideration to, if that's part of me finding money at the moment, he's not it. Not with these next few fixtures for Tottenham. I would anticipate he'd probably do quite well in them. And actually, in fairness, despite yesterday being very disappointing, and it smacks, right? When you think you've got a game won and you lose, that really smacks. I felt worse yesterday than I did after we lost to Arsenal. But I think we'll do well over these next few. But
Agreed.
West Ham next. Historically what West Ham will bring to the table in that fixture because we talk about it a lot. West Ham will be right up for it.
It's at your place as well.
I hope you play like you played against Chelsea because we will destroy you, but I know that you won't do that.
Wow, yeah. I think Tadebo's played the last couple now and he's clearly cemented his place ahead of Mavropanos. So, but yeah, I think...
You think if I don't go Haaland, you think I should captain Solanke, don't you?
100%.
Fuck off, man.
100%. Like, you'll win 2-1 is what going to be my prediction for that game, or 3-1, something like that. I still think you'll score goals. So, yeah. And you did score 2 yesterday, and he did get an attacking percent yesterday. So
Brennan Johnson's under real serious consideration for me. I could go something like Rodgers to Johnson, actually, this week. But I think I'm very happy with Rodgers as kind of my 7th/8 attacker at the moment.
At that price, Rodgers is too good.
And I was very much of the thought process that I might, after this week, land and want to go Jota to Johnson, but I don't at this moment. And it's not because of Johnson, it's because of Jota. But I'm also aware that I may want to make that move in game week 9 as well, still. And then I feel like I've missed, despite what we say about the fixture, I've missed one that could have all potential in it in the West Ham fixture. There are some people who will captain Johnson in game week 8 because of the streak he's on.
Yep, makes sense.
So if people want to buy him, I'm fine with it. I personally wouldn't stick the armband on him. Yeah. Haaland's the best captaincy in game week 8, kids.
Good. James, I've been through the questions that we've had in on X. We've covered off pretty much almost all of them, bar Andy from Let's Talk FPL. He just wants to know what you're going to do with your stress ball, mate. Fantastic.
It's very nice to have someone like Andy message me and go, "You're winning it all." I know he's also saying it in jest. Like, it's been a good start to the season, but it's a very, very long way to go. Very long way to go.
Listen, you'd rather start well than not.
If I get a stress ball, you can film me on Instagram volleying it.
Good. What's the content for the rest of the week, James? We've got international break, so kind of mixing it up a little bit. People can and should take their mind off FPL a little bit.
So the freely available content to all of you, 2 Clash of the Correspondents this week. Forest versus Palace tomorrow, Mark Southerns, Rory McLaughlin-Dowd, and Fulham versus Villa on Thursday with Lewis James and Lee Jackson. Clayton James show Wednesday. I'll be streaming on Friday. Ask James. That's scheduled for 1 p.m. UK time at the moment, with an audio to follow afterwards. If you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/planetfpl. Your additional podcasts this week include a Q&A today. Tomorrow I'm doing a quiz that Clayton is going to get absolutely destroyed at. Wednesday, Tottenham Arsenal, will be talking in more detail about my trip to Brighton and Arsenal's weekend. On Thursday, Suj, we're doing Money in Football and the Inverness Caledonian Fist, who are in financial difficulty at the moment. And on Friday, we're going to have an analysis of this start to the FPL season I've had. Might get some contributions from some patrons, perhaps, to look at some of the data, because I suspect the numbers will tell you that I've been very lucky so far. And I don't know that on the models, but I'm pretty certain that's what they're going to say.
It's a guessing game, so you need luck to do well.
I've guessed not too badly so far.
Exactly that. Good listeners. If you want to support the show, as James said, patreon.com/planetfpl, the additional shows, fixture planning spreadsheet, Slack community, prize leagues, and a whole bunch of other stuff that we like to do to keep the patrons involved in our community. If not, just like on YouTube, like the show wherever you're subscribed, hit any other notification bells, leave us a review or a comment. It all helps the algorithms of the internet gods and all of that kind of stuff. Most importantly, though, stay safe, look after yourselves, take a deep breath whilst this international break, and we'll be back at you over the course of the week. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other and play it your way. Cue music, please. Mad Child.